This is a national day of observance. Need you to open your eyes and ears. Take our listeners through 2013.
A member of the Afghan National Police Force jumped up on the back of a Ford Ranger pickup truck and unloaded onto me and my teammates using a belt-fed machine gun. My left took a round, my right leg was just mangled to pieces.
Like straight out of a movie, just unreal.
So, I should be dead. What that has provided me is many, many gifts, but one of which, probably the most impactful, is just an appreciation for life and how valuable it is and how fragile it is and how it can be over in the blink of an eye. I'm living now my second miracle, which is that of life. And that has weaponized me to wake up every day. It really was until I started going through my recovery as a one-legged guy that I started to see the value in failure and the recognition that that's where the wisdom is at. What you're willing to sacrifice and the amount of discomfort you're willing to go through, how much you're willing to suffer, is equal to the size of the goal.
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick. And good morning, Spartans. Today we're going to jump right in because I want to maximize every minute we have with this man. You are listening to this episode of Spartan Leadership on the Independence Day of the United States of America. And I couldn't be more honored and humbled to welcome today's guest to the show. Today's conversation exemplifies nothing less than pure patriotism. And what you're about to hear is a story that attests to why America, in my opinion, is still the greatest place to live. Warrior and active duty Green Beret warrant officer, recipient of 15 honorable awards, leader, speaker, author, and probably most importantly, I know he'll attest to this, husband and father. Please join me in welcoming Nick Machine Lavery to the show. Welcome, my brother.
Hey, Josh. Good to spend some time together, man. Thanks for having me.
And he got his one of his Father's Day presents he's wearing today, Super Daddy-O. I love the spin on that. Did you and the kids see the new Super Mario movie?
We did. Yeah, it was a huge hit. Actually, I'll take credit. So for Mother's Day, my boys, right? They're 6 years old and 2 years old. My boys got my wife a Super Mario version of this.
All right.
So, we're kind of keeping a theme going here.
Yeah, it's only fitting.
Mario Brothers. Yeah, it works, man.
Man, my son loves that movie. I tell you, he's the youngest of the four I told you about. He's 5. So he is all about that movie. And then I still have the old Mario Kart on the Wii station. Like, that's the only game system I have in my house is the Wii. I should bust out some of the old ones, teach these kids how it used to look like before all the new game systems came into place. But yeah, they'll play Mario Kart Wii every once in a while.
Dude, my wife got this. It's like a miniature version of the original Nintendo. I mean, it's tiny. It's the size of an iPhone. And it's got like 900 of the original games that are on it. Same original
I've seen those.
It's awesome. So me and my 6-year-old, we've been playing Mario, but we've been playing like Contra and some of these old classics. Reliving my childhood.
Does the cheat code still work for Contra?
You don't even need to. You can just choose an option that automatically puts the cheat code in.
Yes. All right. Yeah. I'm definitely checking that out then. So my kids can learn for where we started in these game systems.
Exactly.
All right. But getting back into it, I got to first thank you for your service. We can't go on without saying that. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Both my grandfathers served our country just like you did. We're both at active duty. So I come from a lineage of that. I didn't serve myself, but very deep within my family. So for those of you forgetting why this is a national day of observance, need you to open your eyes and ears. Today's conversation will be a friendly and direct reminder for you. So Nick, let's rewind before we jump into activating the warrior mindset for our listeners. 2013, recovery, 2015, redemption and beyond. Take our listeners through 2013, but do me a favor and stop before you get to your recovery journey.
Yeah, man. I guess the 30,000 foot view of that particular deployment. It was my third time back in Afghanistan. We went in the fall of 2012, and I was wounded in combat on 3 separate occasions. The third being the most serious, which was the result of an insider attack, more commonly, at least in our world, referred to as a green on blue, where a member of the Afghan National Police Force jumped up on the back of a Ford Ranger pickup truck and unloaded onto me and my teammates using a belt-fed machine gun from about 20 feet away. It's considered the most catastrophic insider attack that we have on record. 12 U.S. casualties, 3 of which were killed, another 9, 10 or so Afghans that were killed or wounded. Most of the damage to me was to my right leg. I took rounds in both legs. My left took a round in the lower leg. My right leg was just mangled to pieces. I treated myself. Teammates obviously did what they could for me. I should have died, but it's the bottom line, man. I should have died. According to what we know about physiology and biology and the laws of our current medicine, a lot of those rules and laws were broken on this day. And there really is no scientific medical explanation for how I'm still alive. My femur shattered, femoral artery severed. I was on the battlefield for over an hour and a half before I was eventually loaded on a helicopter. And then to make matters a little bit more complicated, once I got in front of a trauma unit, they administered a transfusion to me, blood transfusion, and it was with an incompatible blood type. And that just took what was already a really bad day and made it a lot worse. So, I should be dead. And, I'll just close this before you want to get into recovery and whatever other details is, what that has provided me is many, many gifts, but one of which probably the most impactful is just an appreciation for life and how valuable it is and how fragile it is and how it can be over in the blink of an eye. And, I'm living now my second miracle, which is that of life. And that has weaponized me to wake up every day. And I have bad days and I procrastinate and put things off like anybody else. But every day I'm able to wake up with that level of gratitude for having one more day above ground. And it's my responsibility to maximize it.
Yeah. Were you guys armed at that time?
We were. We were just getting ready to go on to an operation. So we had just finished our final mission brief with our partnered force, our final comms checks, and we were getting ready to roll. And that's when this dude jumped up on the truck and opened fire.
Shit. And was that 50 cal belt fed?
It was a PKM.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just trying to give perspective for those rounds that were heading downfield that you guys, like, those machine guns are wicked.
PKM, it's a Russian-made belt-fed machine gun. I mean, that thing can cause damage from 500-600 meters out, no problem. I mean, it is a powerful machine gun from 20-25 feet. When I got hit with that in the back of my leg, it was like I got hit by a train. It wasn't this like piercing sensation or stabby. It was like I was hit by a train. It knocked me and another soldier clean onto the ground. So very powerful weapon system. And this was a complex ambush. So this dude opened fire. And then at the same time, about 25 or so enemy fighters that had our compound almost completely surrounded all began launching machine gun RPGs down on top of us.
Just, like straight out of a movie, just unreal. And so I just told you before we got on air that I was just with my buddy, CW, who is another Purple Heart recipient that's still living. And for those that don't know, and maybe you do, Nick, know the percentage on this, but everyone that dies in battle receives a Purple Heart. There are very few of you still walking this earth with a Purple Heart. What percentage do you know?
I haven't a clue what the percentage is. There's quite a bit now coming off the back of 20 years in conflict during the post 9/11 GWAT era. But compared to those that have received it in the past, yeah, it's still going to be a very small percentage. It's certainly the type of award that deserves respect and honor and recognition. It's also the one that none of us want. You know, we refer to it as the enemy marksmanship badge. And, you know, service members tend to have kind of a sick sense of humor. You know, if a civilian were to say that, you'd probably get just ripped to shreds. I can say it all day long. It's true, right? So it's not the one that you want. You certainly don't want 3 of them, which is what I have. So the goal, amongst many others, is to go the rest of my military career without getting any more of those guys.
Yeah. I mean, what CW was telling me, and even my grandfather, when I could get him to talk about it, because he was also a Purple Heart recipient, is when you go to battle with the warrior's mindset, is there's not more honorable position than to, as like the Spartans would say back in the day, to come home on your shield. It's like you're fully prepared as best as you can to give your life for the country, which is why we should honor every veteran that has put their life on the line. But it's one of those things where C-Dub was talking about that as well, is that it's definitely not a ribbon he would prefer to have.
Yeah, it's the case, man. And, you know, while many of us come into the military for a whole variety of different reasons, you know, some of which patriotism is at the absolute top of that list. And for others, that's a little bit farther to the bottom. Some people come in, they want, you know, an education. They want to receive training in particular craft, and then, you know, take that training and education and go do something in the civilian world. And in my opinion, there's no wrong answer as to why you want to come in and serve your country. There's no wrong answer. Odds are there's no wrong. I have yet to meet anyone that has told me, like, hey, why do you want to be a soldier? Why do you want to be a Green Beret? And they say something that I'm like, that's horrible. You know, whatever it is. I know for me, coming in post 9/11, 9/11 was the reason why I wanted to come in. I was angry. And just to your point, you know, with the Purple Heart and, you know, service to our country, and, you know, you're willing to lay everything down on the line for that. And that is true. And that is what it takes. For me, once I got in and began doing it, that mentality shifted more towards my teammates than really anything else. I'm willing to lay down my life for those guys. That's really what it was about. And I know a lot of us kind of operate that way because the Star Spangled Banner and the red, white, and blue and all that stuff is amazing. But when you're walking into a known gunfight, for many of us, it's too abstract. It's like too broad. You need something that's more tangible that you can like grasp onto and see it and touch it and smell it. If I'm going to get under this bird and get dropped off onto a rooftop in the middle of the night and go kick down a door that I know there are bad guys with bad intentions on the other side of that door, it has to be something for a lot of us that's closer to home. And that for most of us, and for me specifically, is my teammates. And, you know, I adopted that same mentality, man, come back with your shoulder on it. I was fine either way. So when this happened with me, you know, that is the way a warrior dies. And I was okay with that. It was a little frustrating that it was going to be coming at the hands of a guy that I was training and taught how to use the gun he shot me and my friends with. So that added a little extra, you know, anger to the whole thing. But that is the mentality that I think most of us have to take on to go do the work that is expected of us.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to get into that in a little bit after we talk about your recovery, because mental health's a passion of mine for civilians and veterans alike. But you spent the next 2 years in recovery before you deployed to Afghanistan for yet another tour. So let's talk sacrifice and your decision to beat the odds. You fought the doubt in your head, the fears of your loved ones, the efforts of the military as they attempted to push you into retirement, all of that stuff. What battles did you have to win? I just noticed I'm wearing in the video a Win the Day shirt, right? So as I'm, you know, thinking about this question, looking at the video, win the day, right? So what battles did you have to win mentally and physically to be able to continue to fight the war against the true enemies?
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, it's a long list. What jumps out to me first and stronger is the amount of battles I had to lose. I had to lose X 1,000 of the ones I needed to win. Really, I needed to lose that often in order to win. You know, so in order to win the war against the world, You have to win the battles within your mind. And it was more off of the losses. And that was in the physical space, the mental, emotional. I had to get it wrong a whole bunch and learn from those losses and really reframe my relationship with failure. And, you know, a competitive guy, I grew up playing sports. I played football in college, started combatives at a young age, competing. Like I was the type that I will always win. That was like me. And if I were to lose or when I would lose, you know, there'd be some reason as to why that happened. And that's where we would end. It really was until I started going through my recovery as a one-legged guy that I started to see the value in failure and the recognition that that's where the wisdom is at. So the more often you can fail while honestly attempting to win, there's a pain that comes with that. Physically, emotionally, a shot to our pride, but that hurts, but it has to hurt because that pain is the catalyst for the growth that happens on the backside of failure. And when you can do that with consistency, that, in my opinion, is when magic starts to happen. That's when greatness starts to happen, and you just keep going through that path. So it was an absolute roller coaster ride for sure. And I'll just wrap this by saying, you know, I had a decision to make, and it was, are you going to go back to doing who you are, the thing that you were put on this earth to do? Are you going to go back to that, or are you going to do something else? And I didn't see it really as much of a choice. It was one, of course, but for me, it was, this is who you are. This is what you do. That's it, period. And what that enabled me to do was completely bypass the what am I going to do question. And I think that that's a question that a lot of people can get stuck on for a long time. And whether that's on the back end of trauma or a bad day or a bad year, or you just look up at the age of 40, 50, whatever, and going like, what am I doing? And like, what am I going to do? Well, I knew that. That was clearly defined, which allowed me to proceed all roads to the how. And it's a different question. I knew what I was going to do. I hadn't a clue as to how I was going to do it. But when you know the answer to any equation, when you know the answer, it makes the equation a lot easier to solve. And that's just the way I saw it. This is a problem that needs to be solved. This is an equation that needs to be solved. And there is a solution. If I know the answer is 3 and it's 2 plus X equals 3, well, it makes it a lot easier to solve for X because I know the answer. That allowed me to go through this trial and error process of solving this algorithm, just one, variable at a time.
Man, that's so good. And so much people could draw away from that don't have to be, that never have to step foot on a battlefield. You can still take a shit ton out of what Nick just said. Who was the hardest conversation you had to have with when you wanted to go back? Because you in your mind sounded resolute. Like you sound resolute. This is what you're going to do. But I know, just thinking about family, just thinking about your superiors, you're a one-legged guy now. It's like, who were the hardest conversations you had to have to convince to go back?
Yeah, there were several hard ones. By far the most difficult was with my now wife. All right. At the time, we had just kind of started becoming a thing. I got home from Walter Reed after being there for a year. I moved in with her. We were both stationed at Fort Bragg. She's active duty Army as well. I was home in her house for maybe a week or two. And I knew what I was doing. And I'd already begun moving towards it. Well, I get back to Bragg and I have all my assets back there, strength coaches, dietitians. So I'm dialing things up just that much more. And I created what a single 24 hours was going to look like for me. And Josh, this was dialed into the minute. I mean, this is completely beyond obsessed, obsessed to the nth degree, dialed into the minute. And I sat down with her and I said, hey, babe, here's the situation. This is what my life is going to look like here. And I don't know how long it's going to take. It could take a year. It could take 10 years. But this is the way that I'm going to be living until one of two things happen. I either successfully complete this mission of getting back to my mission, getting back to my team, getting back into combat, or I'm going to die. It's one of the two. And what that means for us is there will be no dinners. There will be no vacations. If somebody dies, I'm not going. when I say all in, I mean literally, and I just want you to understand what you would be getting yourself into if you want to maintain this relationship with me. And dude, I went into that conversation expecting her to be like, yeah, dude, like, I don't really know this guy like all that well. Like, fuck this. Like, I'm not getting involved in this kind of like craziness. I went in expecting that. And I got to tell you, man, I could see walking into that discussion, our future. I knew it was real. I knew I had found my soulmate, my life partner. I could see the kids and the white picket fence and the dogs, all the amazing things that I have literally now as I'm sitting there talking to you. I could see it then, right? A decade ago. And I was willing to give that up. I was willing to sacrifice it. And it's one of those conversations, man. It's an emotional one for me to think about, because as much as I believe that was necessary, and I still believe that that was what was necessary. So I have a sense of pride in my ability to make such extreme sacrifices. I'm also met with a degree of guilt for having been willing to relinquish what I have today. Because my family is the most important part of my entire world. You know, 2 small boys, amazing life, unbelievable. To think if my wife today had acted rationally, then none of this would exist. Like, these 2 humans who gave me this t-shirt yesterday would not exist. And just what a tragedy that would be, right? You know, so there's a line that I leveraged and I've continued to leverage, and it is, when it comes to achievement, the size of the struggle is commensurate with the size of the goal. And this example I'm giving now is at the most extreme there is, right? But what you're willing to sacrifice in the amount of discomfort you're willing to go through, how much you're willing to suffer, is equal to the size of the goal. So we all just simply have to decide what it is that we've set our sights on and be willing to match that with the same degree of discomfort, sacrifice, pain, and suffering. I was willing to sacrifice everything.
Yeah. That is so powerful. I just want people to appreciate that for a minute, because it's the exact reason we were talking about sacrifice. Sacrifice for this country. Nick was literally willing to give up the love of his life to go finish the mission, to go be with his teammates again. And like he said, a rational woman would have said, I'm out. And he wouldn't have the beautiful life that he has today. Or he could have died on that mission as well. That's the other outcome. So it all turned out great. Now, as we're sitting here 10 years from that incident and that conversation, but that's the sacrifice that we got to appreciate that our soldiers make. All right, so switch gears a little bit. That was so good, man. I hope everyone replays that a couple times, because that is exactly spot on. The willing of the sacrifice that you have to make to hit the goals that you want to achieve, and being so dang clear about it, which you were. But all right, so tweaking and moving a little bit. You recently posted something that I want to shine a light on: the 8 steps to sustaining misery. You remember this? Avoid sunlight, remain sedentary, eat garbage, drink sugar, disregard sleep hygiene, zero ownership, aimless scrolling, consistent alcohol. Did you generate this list from experience?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
100%.
Let's talk. Let's talk about your experience and why you came up with those 8 steps, because I being, fit, keeping clean, being as nutritious as I am, I identify this, and also leading high performers. These are things I see consistently of those that don't achieve their goals. So I want to talk about this a little bit. Where did those 8 steps come from for you to learn through personal experience to be so passionate about it now?
Yeah, I mean, today's world, it's easy to see someone out there and put them on this crazy pedestal and convince ourselves that there's got to be this magic potion or the secret sauce or the whatever it is. It's just like, it's so unobtainable. It's unrealistic for me to achieve that or something similar, because I'm not blank. And, while there's no exact algorithm for anyone that's reached success, however that's defined to a person, there are some trends that exist within most, and they are incredibly simple. It's simple. It's almost so simple that many will disregard it. Like, no, this can't be it. Like, give me the real thing. It's not that you're taking a 5-minute cold shower every day. Like, that's silly. That's stupid. That is not what has created you today. And it's like, well, really, it is things like that. You know, it's a bunch of really simple choices and tasks that when you stack them up, it starts to create a real effect. And, you know, how easy it is for us to justify that things like that, things that simple are worthless, you know, because it takes a real difficult, hard look in the mirror to say, wow, could it really only be that the one thing that is preventing me from being as miserable as I am now and being happy is getting up and moving around for 30 minutes a day? Like, if it really is that simple and yet I'm still this miserable, what does that say about myself? And when you open up the hood and you take an honest inventory and look at some of the choices, that in itself can become too great for a person to take on. And of course, this is part of our programming. Like, this is built within us as a survival mechanism because emotional wellness is directly tied to physical health. So there's a reason why it is easy to call things like this irrelevant. And no, that's not really it. It's got to be something else. This dude's pitching something. It can't be that. Because if it is, and you accept that it is that simple, then that can become difficult to accept. Like, wow, like I'm really just these tiny adjustments away from completely changing who I am and then my entire trajectory and my fulfillment and happiness and success and all that. So, you know, it's success really is nothing more than the sum of small efforts performed daily. And that list right there is a bunch of really easy things to do. Easy and simple. It's odd to find both. Now, like, training is supposed to be hard, but getting yourself to move around for an hour a day is easy. All right. So if you stack up these very simple tasks with consistency, that really is some of these trends you see amongst anyone who you look up to or has reached a level of status or whatever it is, whether it's Elon Musk, Thomas Edison, Michael Jordan. These are the trends. It's these small choices they make daily. And it's posts like that I hope to remind people and challenge people that, man, you're talking about some micro adjustments. Just, are you willing to make those little shifts and then stick to it and then sit back and be amazed at what you have turned yourself into?
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think that's why 75 Hard is so popular as well. I see people that try and bash it from the fitness or nutrition aspect, and that's why Andy left it so ambiguous as far as you choose the diet, you just got to stick with it. So it's your choice. You can do intermittent fasting, you can do keto, you can do whatever you want, just eat clean. But you choose the diet, no cheat meals. That's the rule. You choose the exercises that you do. Just one of those workouts has to be outdoors. So it gets you out in the elements, which goes to your sunlight point. Gets you out in some possibly rain when no one else is. Doing something when no one else is willing to do it. No alcohol. There's a big point in that. You get up groggy. You're putting sugars in your system that don't need to be there. It's fascinatingly how simple it is, but yet how effective it works. And it also, when people ask me about it, because I've done it a couple times now, when people ask me about it that haven't done it, I was like, it forces you to really plan ahead your days, especially living in Wisconsin here. So you're down south, so you don't have as much of the inclement weather. So in the wintertime, like if I'm rucking outside, I got to plan for boots and good boots that I'm not going to mess up my feet in because I got to go and do it again tomorrow and the next day and after that. And also winter clothes and then a change of clothes. So you're planning ahead these workouts and forcing you to plan ahead, which leads me into my question for you, because what I've noticed about special forces guys that come out into the private sector is you just like you mentioned earlier, is you have to be so disciplined with your minute by minute and your hour by hour as a special forces person that becomes a superpower in the private sector. I was hanging out with this former SEAL that had retired and gotten into the private sector, and he was getting his MBA and also working for a Wall Street firm in training, doing trading. And there's something else he was doing, but I was sitting there going, so you're full-time MBA, full-time at this firm, and full time doing something else at that time. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was like, how do you plot your days? Like, look, every single minute of mine was planned when I was on the teams. And he's like, I'm just doing that. He goes, if I have any unused time on my hands, I'm a mess in my head. So I maximize every minute going forward. So I wonder if you've had that cognition being on special forces teams. Now, I realize you're still serving, but like, I want you to kind of dive into that, because it is a superpower how much time people waste. And then seeing people like you and this other gentleman I was referencing that was a SEAL, maximizing the 24 hours in the day.
Yeah, man, there's a couple amazing, more than a couple, but a couple I'll hit on quickly with this topic. One is, when it comes to efficiency, how you invest your time is critical. All right. This will very quickly scare people off. Right? Like what you just described is too extreme for most, and that's okay. And I'll hit that here in a second. But efficiency is largely rooted in time management or time prioritization. All right. So my challenge to those out there that are trying to become more efficient and better utilize the 24 that we've all been given. And I think really at first it begins with some of our language. Like the expression, I don't have time, is a ridiculous phrase. Most people use it all the time. I ran out of time. I don't have time. I didn't have the time. It's like, stop. We all have the same, literally exact 24. You are just simply choosing how to use it. And it's like, oh, well, you know what I mean. It's like, well, I know what you're saying. Do you know what you mean? Because it can become very easy for you to convince yourself that you haven't been given this gift of time that's just going to show up gift wrapped. And when you open it, it says gym. Like nobody has that. It does not exist. The universe doesn't partition off an hour a day for me to just go work out. Okay. So let's adjust our language, because there's an incredible power that exists within the language we use and the progress that we make. That's a fact. All right. So adjust that. I don't have time means it wasn't a priority. That's what that means. Yep. That's what many high performers hear anytime they hear someone say, I didn't have time. Boom. It wasn't a priority. And you know what? That's okay. Because it moves me to my second point is, if everything's a priority, then nothing's a priority. Priorities is a list. That's what it is. You may have number 1 through number 1,000, but that's what it is. It is a list. Priority 1, 2, 3, 4, blank. And those can move around a bit throughout the day, month, year, whatever. But if everything's a priority, nothing is a priority. When it comes to time management, time prioritization, it's much like accumulating wealth. And by no means am I a financial advisor whatsoever. But sound practice is, what most people do is they pay their rent, their car payment, their utilities, their cell phone bill, like whatever's left over is what they invest in savings, i.e. wealth accumulation. With that strategy, forget about it. The game is already over before you start it. You will never reach that point. Those that do invert that entirely. So they invest in themselves first. Then with what's left over, they pay their mortgage, their cell phone, their car, all their expenses. People hearing this now are going, yeah, but that's impossible. Like my mortgage is X, my car is Y, my cell phone is, well, it's a basic equation, much like time management, because we have 24 hours. This is what you want to earn. This is what you want to save in a year, 10 years. You want to have $100 million in 10 years. Okay. That's a very simple mathematical equation on what you need to put someplace a day. You can do that. And then what's left is what you use to live off of. Now, for 99% of the people hearing this, that means it would be a radical downgrade of the way you're living, right? You have to lower the cost of your lifestyle and ideally increase how much you're taking in. That first part is likely too much for anyone to take on. They've just become accustomed to the way they live, the kind of car they drive, the kind of house they have, whatever. But that is the science behind it. That's the philosophy, is you invest in yourself first, and then what's left, you put in the other places. Time prioritization, i.e. moving towards efficiency, is the exact same thing. What matters the most right now, or for this mission, or for this week, or for this month, or for this operation I'm doing? I'm going to invest my time in there first. That's the first things that get blocked off, right? Gym, time with my kids, dinner with my wife. Bam. Like those are not moving. All right, cool. Now I can move everything else around that. And that's how you structure it. So it becomes a complete and total inversion to how most people are thinking and doing. we are operationalized to think and train and execute our day-to-day that way. So we've taken the same operationalized approach that we take when conducting a campaign plan or a mission or an operation or a deployment or anything, and we just live our lives that way. And it's just what we're accustomed to doing because many of us spent so many years doing that way that if it becomes anything that's just too lax or like, we become uncomfortable, right? We'll get anxious.
Yep.
Like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow at noon. Like my heart rate will start to go up, And then my last point I want to make here, Josh, because a lot of people are like, man, that's extreme. Like, I'm not a Green Beret. I'm not a SEAL. I'm a, whatever. It's like, listen, man, for one, you iterate this thing. You do not go from where you are at now to dialing in tomorrow by the minute. Odds are that's going to be wildly unsustainable. Little small victories over time, right? Little small adjustments over time. Small piece by small piece by small piece, almost to the point where you don't even notice you've made the change. If you wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning every day, that's just normal for you. Tomorrow, wake up at 6:55. Like, you're not going to notice the 5 minutes. And do that for 2 weeks. 2 weeks goes by, bump it down to 6:50. Complete, repeat. If you go from 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. tomorrow, you may get by with doing that for a day or two. It's almost certainly unsustainable. It's just too big too soon. The idea is to gradually earn that kind of lifestyle over time, the same way we do it as service members. Lastly, man, we have an expression in the military that is no plan survives first contact. That means that you got a plan in place with contingencies and all these things, and you're on the path, you're executing the plan, and then rounds start flying at your face, and the plan goes out the window because everyone now has to adjust to these individual problems that they're dealing with on the battlefield in real time. And there is no way to account for every single variable. So then you are now off track. You are off the path. You are off your plan, and everyone's solving individual problems. Well, then the question could come in, well, then what's the point of the plan? If you tell me that as soon as something bad happens, as soon as something goes wrong, the plan goes out the window. Well, what's the point of the plan? It's a fair question. The answer is the plan is a known point to return to. It is a known point for the entire team or you as an individual to work yourself back to, right? And then you get back on that path and you continue to move forward until life throws its next curveball at you. Because life, same as the Taliban or Al-Qaeda or ISIS or what, they don't cooperate. All right, man, life does not cooperate. It's gonna get in the way and you're gonna have to react to that particular scenario and then work yourself back to the plan. Where most people mess this up is they wait till Monday, right? How many times do you hear that? Like Mondays always has to be the day. It's gonna be, I'll get back on track on Monday. Like it's January 1st, new year, new me. It's like, okay, that's what most will do. If we decide to recognize that life is going to get in the way for everybody, and most people are going to either make the problem worse, i.e., I took a bite of the donut, so I might as well eat the rest of the box, right? Because like I'm already here, I might as well just go all in. Most make it worse, or they put off getting back on track. I'll get back on track on Monday. Hey, you know what? It's the 15th. I'll get back on track on July 1st. Yeah. Maybe July 5th after the holidays. Most make it worse, or most procrastinate to get back on track, which means if this happens to everyone, if the curveball is coming for us all, every time that happens presents an opportunity to those of us that decide to see it as such and get back on the path now. That right there alone will result in you either extending the lead on your competition, which could easily just be you, or make up the gap between you and whoever else is in front of you. Right? It's a reframing of a perspective of the realities of life, man. That's really all it is.
Man, thank you. A lot of great stuff in there. All right, I'm going to keep us moving because I know we got limited time together. I want to get into your redemption story as we see it today. Let's talk about your passion to inspire, honor to serve this nation, and privilege to impact the careers of Special Force agents for generations to come. You are currently serving as a Special Forces warrant officer. What did that position and rank entail?
Transitioning from enlisted to warrant officer in SF, it's unique. So the Army has warrant officers in most of its branches, meaning most of its like sections of work. Special Forces warrants are unlike any of the other ones. We're totally different, which is why we go to our own school. Every other warrant officer in the Army will go down to the warrant officer course down at Fort Rucker in Alabama. Green Berets, we go to our own warrant officer course at Fort Bragg, just because it's so unique to the others. For me, it was kind of just what I decided to be the next progression in my career, and the next milestone to reach. I was looking for that next echelon of leadership. As a senior enlisted guy, I wanted to maximize how much time I had on the detachment. And when you go the warrant officer route, it opens up that window quite a bit. Warrant offices, we do a lot, SF warrant offices, we do a lot, but what we mostly provide is the continuity to a team while other leaders are swapping in and out repeatedly. The warrant officer is the steady state that's there as other leaders are coming and going. And what we mostly do is provide counsel and advice. We mostly advise decision makers on how to make strategic decisions and or tactical decisions. So it was just the next progression for me. That was met with some administrative challenge. There had never been an amputee that wanted to become a Special Forces warrant officer. So with that came some hurdles that I had to navigate around and through. But I've been doing this now as a warrant for 4.5 or so years. And I have absolutely no regrets, man. I love what I get to do.
Man, that's awesome. What do you find the most joy in leading others?
Oh, man. The most joy in leading others. There's a lot. It's tough to say the most, man, because there's a lot. I would say the first thing that comes to mind is watching pre-existing capability being unlocked. As much as I enjoy training and teaching, seeing the light bulb go off on what they're already capable of doing and then doing it, I think brings me more fulfillment than teaching someone how to do something. I'm really reminding you of some things that you already know. And maybe I'm enabling that or providing you some tools or some inspiration or whatever it is, but you already can do this. And as a leader and as a teammate, I may be helping you just see that for what it is. That's quite fulfilling.
Yeah, that's really good. And what do you think is the greatest leadership attributes, people that you enjoy following, that you would go to battle with? Because I know you've experienced, as we all have, good and bad leadership. The great ones, what do they have that would make Nick follow?
The greatest, and greatest is a strong word, but if you look at like the pinnacle, right, of leadership, I would argue that it is based on values, that you are following them and you are allowing them to influence you based predominantly on who they are and what they represent and the way they live their life through values and integrity. And you've been around it enough where you've seen it. You've seen the way that they live. And I think when you start to lead by that level of example, it is what enables leaders to lead in a through capacity. And I'll just say here, with like Green Berets, we specialize in unconventional warfare. There's a lot of words in there. Two of the key words is with and through, right? We conduct operations with and through indigenous personnel or whoever we're working with. With requires us to physically be there. It's based on proximity, right? If I'm doing something with someone, I'm there with them. If I'm doing something through somebody, I don't have to be anywhere near them at all. In fact, I could be dead and I could still influence them because you're changing some of the emotions that you're using to create that influence effect. Operating in a through capacity, meaning proximity is completely irrelevant, I think is largely based on having seen the way someone lives their life through values and through integrity. And therefore, they can continue to influence you no matter where they are in relation to you, arguably indefinitely.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. I guess this will be somewhat in the same vein, but it's more on mindset. And the Spartan leadership community is familiar with the warrior mindset based on some past guests and just episodes that we've had. But I would love for you to reinforce the concept. What is the warrior mindset, not just in the military, but also in the household and in business?
I use the warrior mindset as as a buzz phrase, which is the entire first section of my book, and it all talks about the mentality, and I cultivated that from the warrior ethos, which is 4 principles that exist within the Soldier's Creed. Soldier's Creed is the first thing that you learn when you decide to become a soldier in the United States Army, and it is just buried in your head like most creeds are. It's part of the indoctrination process of becoming a soldier. It's part of the whole thing. The warrior ethos are part of the Soldier's Creed, and there's 4 tenets. I'll always place the mission first. I'll never accept defeat. I will never quit. I will never leave a fallen comrade. That is the warrior ethos. And I use those tenets to train and teach on this warrior mindset. Because although all 4 of those things have a very strong military tone, obviously, it's translatable and relatable to anybody, no matter what you do, right, professionally or otherwise. And they all translate into one word. And these are 4 words that are very common. Again, this isn't revolutionary. These are words that you, for sure, and then every one of your listeners, guaranteed, have all heard before. I will always place the mission first is discipline. In my opinion, is at the foundation of success. It's at the foundation of progress. Without discipline, the game's already over. Right? Mm-hmm. The willingness to do whether you feel like it or not, essentially, is discipline.
It's the starting line.
It's the starting point. That is how the foundation is built or strengthened so you can continue to build upon it. I'll always place the mission first is discipline. I'll never accept defeat is resilience. All right. Mental toughness. The ability to get back up after getting knocked down, the ability to continue to move in the face of failure, the ability to continue to move in the face of adversity. I will never quit sounds very familiar to the previous one. I will never quit translates into persistence. And there is an overlap between persistence and resilience. One really enables the other. What makes persistence unique is it's continuing to move forward in the face of adversity, but also in the face of success. And I think that's where high performers have a unique relationship with persistence. I'm going to keep going even after I hit the milestone. It's the ability to zero in on the next objective and continue to climb and stretch and grow. Whereas many of us want to stay on that mountaintop and enjoy the view for a really long time, if not indefinitely. And we've just become content with that one win. So persistence. And then lastly, I will never leave a fallen comrade is commitment, because that's what I will never leave a fallen comrade is. It's a commitment to your teammate and to yourself. Under no circumstances am I going to leave you behind. It's a willingness to do whatever it takes by any righteous means necessary. And then that, of course, spans into a lot of tactics and strategy and actual 3-dimensional decision-making on the ground. But the warrior mindset to me is discipline, resilience, persistence, and commitment, because I have yet to find a way in which you can stop somebody who has committed to living underneath those 4 ethos. In my opinion, it becomes impossible to stop somebody who is committed to living life that way.
Really, really good. Really good. Everyone can take that home. Don't have to be military. But I love that you use the military core tenets to drive those core values home. And again, discipline is the starting point. And it goes back to those 8 things we listed out, from sunlight to exercise to nutrition to not drinking alcohol every night. All those different things. That's the starting line, discipline. So good. All right, I never prep anyone for this final question, but always curious to the answer. What's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true that most others would disagree with?
I'm going to say this because I can and because I believe it to be true. The United States military and service members are oftentimes looked at as the quintessential leadership environment. That's where we're going to get our best leaders from, and whether they come from the military and go into the corporate sector or whatever it is they do. And while there are some phenomenal leaders in the military, in my opinion, the military itself and the way it's structured actually can stagnate the desire and need to become a better leader. And I'll explain why. You go into basic training or boot camp or whatever your initiation is. You learn really fast what rank means. Someone outranks you, it's roger that and you execute no matter what, assuming it's a lawful order, okay? That has to exist in the military, right? If a captain is going to tell a bunch of privates to go storm a beach almost to certain death, that is based largely on that rank telling me, my rank, to go do something. So roger that and execute, roger that and execute. That is the life of a soldier, a Marine, airman, sailor. That's how we operate. It's done on purpose so that you can make decisions with tens of thousands, potentially millions of human beings, right? I don't have the ability to form a relationship with all of them because there's just so many of them. Yeah. I need you to do it now because I'm telling you to, and that's it. Well, in my opinion, leading by virtue of rank, i.e. your position in an organization, is the lowest form of leadership there is. In fact, your goal is to move beyond that as soon as humanly possible. It's the entry point for all of us. Whether you're new to a team, they don't know you. You literally just walked in. Like, I'm going to do what you say, maybe because you're you and I'm me. Like, I have nothing else to go off of. Or as new people come onto your team, you've been there for 5 years. You get a new person. There's no relationship, right? There's no chance to establish a long-term history of effective communication or all these other aspects of leadership because you just walked in. So it's the initiation point, but the goal is to move beyond that as soon as humanly possible. Because rank is so revered in the military, again, by design, it really de-incentivizes many military members to want to learn the skill of leadership. Because leadership is a skill. Leadership is a skill. Well, let's say shooting free throws. Like, you want to get good at shooting free throws, you shoot a whole bunch of free throws. Purposeful practice is how you get better at it. Same exact thing as with leadership. Leadership is a science and it's an art form. And you either study it and learn it and apply it deliberately or you don't. That's it. Well, in the Army or in the military, all we really need to do to expand our influence is just to keep getting promoted. And then we can tell more people what to do. So it goes against what I believe to be a much more effective leadership growth process because rank is so serious and drilled into our heads from the second we show up. Great leaders in the military absolutely exist. Horrible leaders in the military absolutely exist. And I would say that the former is more rare, that there are more bad leaders in the military. I'll close by saying for us, there is value either way it is, right? You either learn what has inspired you or motivated you or taught you. You learn things that you want to emulate and then recreate or modify, but you learn good leadership tactics or techniques, or you learn bad ones. Either way, it's valuable to me. I'm either learning what I want to recreate or I'm learning what I never want to do to anybody else.
Yes.
Every single one of these engagements you can see as a transaction. Like, they're either buying what to do later or they're buying what not to do later. And that is the awesome power that comes with taking on a leadership position, leadership responsibility, leadership role, which is irrelevant to rank. All right, man, leadership is a choice. That is all it is. You either choose to be one or you choose not to. I don't care what your rank is, what your title is, how much you make, your salary, doesn't matter. The entry-level person can choose to be a leader and influence up, lateral, and down. And the CEO or the four-star general can choose to influence in the same way. It's an option. You simply have to decide that this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to commit to learning it and putting it into action.
Freaking love it. That was a masterclass in description on leadership. So thank you. Thank you again for your service. Where can everyone follow you?
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, the one-stop shop, man. It's our website. It's Team Machine. That's mchn.com. It's got links to the socials and, the merch and the book and, all the stuff. But my favorite part of our website is the direct personal correspondence that comes directly to me. There's business inquiries for, speaking and, the other stuff, but The personal correspondence stuff, it comes directly to me. I do actually answer those things myself. The backlog can sometimes get a little crazy, but I'm very deliberate about having that two-way communication and that connectivity. So by all means, man, jump on there, hit me up. If you got any questions or thoughts, I'll be happy to hear them.
Well, Spartans, you heard the man. Get to his website, buy his book, book him to speak, and obviously he's available if you got questions. So I love it. Thank you for taking the time to pour into our audience today. Spartans, remember that good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.